Welcome back, audience. You came here for a spark, a trigger, a whisper in the dark that echoes louder than the noise around you. And tonight, you'll hear it. Because this is not a story of sunshine and salvation. No, this is the story of the shadow that grew into its own storm. You were not made to stay small, to follow every signpost others nailed to your path. You were meant to burn through maps. You were meant to take everything they predicted for you and set it on fire. Because let's be clear, you executed a plot twist they'll always remember, and that is your origin, your weapon, your legacy. They thought they had you figured out, didn't they? They built a box with your name on it, padded it with labels, with expectations, with every quiet insult cloaked as advice. They didn't see a storm when you walked in. They saw silence, compliance, maybe even weakness. But weakness is an absence of strength. Weakness is a mask that strength wears while it sharpens its blade. And oh, you sharpened yours in secret. While they laughed, doubted, pitied, you were building. Not just plans. You were building a monster out of your ambition, a creature out of your defiance. They saw walls. You saw a maze. And you memorized every turn in the dark. This wasn't a comeback. Comebacks are for those who left willingly. You never left. You were exiled, abandoned, thrown into the void by people who couldn't stomach your intensity, your vision, your hunger. They wanted you quieter, smaller, safer. You wanted war, not the kind with guns and flags, the kind where you returned to the world like a rupture, like something broken that healed sharper. You didn't crawl back, you rose. And when you did, everything shifted. Suddenly, those who underestimated you couldn't meet your eyes. Suddenly, you weren't a memory, they were. Because when you broke through, you didn't ask for recognition, you took it. You didn't request a seat, you stole the table. That's what real transformation looks like. It's not poetic, it's violent, it's brutal. It's a scar you choose to wear like armor. Let's talk about the silence, not the peaceful kind, the choking kind, the kind that wraps around your dreams at 2 a.m. and tells you you're not enough, that you never were. You remember it, don't you? The nights when it was just you and your regrets, dancing in circles, screaming into pillows because even your own voice scared you. That silence, you mastered it. You didn't escape it. You owned it. You used it as a training ground, as a forge. You whispered your name into the dark so many times that even the shadows started to fear you. They became your choir, your army, your echo. You made an ally of the void, and that's why they never saw you coming. Do you understand what it means to be underestimated? It's a gift. It's camouflage. They call you broken, lost, delusional. But every insult is a key. Every dismissal is fuel. You weren't distracted by their applause because you weren't getting any. You were focused. You were starving. And hunger makes gods of men. It carves new dimensions in your mind, teaches your heart to beat in code. And that code? It became your map. It led you right to their doorstep, and when you knocked, you didn't ask to be let in. You kicked the damn door down. This is what they will never understand. Redemption is not about being forgiven. It's about making sure they remember why they needed to forgive you in the first place. You didn't ask for their pity. You weaponized your pain. Every betrayal, every failure, every moment that cracked you open became a sharp edge. And when you finally stood tall, they thought you were new. But you weren't new. You were ancient. You were the version of yourself they tried to bury. And oh, did you dig your way out with bare hands and a grin? Now when they say your name, they pause. Not because they love you, because they fear you. Not the kind of fear bred from horror, but the kind that comes from regret. Regret that they didn't back you when they had the chance. Regret that they didn't shut you down harder. But it's too late now. You're the storm they dismissed, the silence they ignored, the prophecy they mocked. And you fulfilled it in fire, not forgiveness. That's why they'll always remember. And the beauty of it? You didn't have to scream. Your actions became your vengeance. Your evolution became your revenge. You didn't show them your scars. You showed them what bled for you. And they stood there, staring, mouths open, wondering how the same person they tried to erase became the ink that rewrote their whole script. That's not success. That's obliteration. That's what you did. You became the twist in their story. You turned their narrative into ashes, and all they could do was watch. They can't replicate what you did because it wasn't manufactured. It was earned in solitude, in war, in heartbreak, in the cruel silence of being forgotten. And now you're unforgettable. You are not the cautionary tale. They are. You are not the warning sign. They are. You were never the failure. You were the recalibration, the silent algorithm rewriting destiny in real time. Even now, as you walk into rooms, they feel it, that pull, that gravity. It's not arrogance, it's history. It's everything you endured walking beside you like an invisible army. They don't know why they flinch, why they stumble, but you do. It's because the ghost of who they tried to bury walks ahead of you, and she or he is smiling. They flinch because they know deep down that they miscalculated you. You weren't a chapter in their book. You were the author all along. They wrote you off, thinking your silence was surrender. But you weren't retreating. You were reloading. You were gathering your ghosts, forging your vengeance in solitude. They mistook absence for weakness, but it was simply the calm before your uprising. And now your presence speaks louder than any voice ever could. You don't need to explain yourself. You walk in and the air thickens because everyone feels it. The weight of your unspoken story dragging behind you like a throne made of thorns. People always think a plot twist comes with lightning and thunder, but yours came like a surgical strike, clean, swift, devastating. The kind that doesn't just change the story, it rewrites the entire mythology. You didn't just prove them wrong, you proved yourself right. That's the real victory. Not validation from those who doubted you, but resurrection of the belief you once buried. The belief in yourself. That's what they fear the most. Not that you rose, but that you rose without them. That they were never part of your final draft. And now their chapters end in ellipses while yours keeps unfolding like prophecy. The world is full of people who will try to define you by your lowest moments, who will try to freeze you in time, in pain, in failure. But here you are, rewriting every frozen frame, melting every scar into power. They look at your scars and see weakness. You look at them and see survival. They see ruins. You see blueprints. You took the wreckage and built a cathedral from it, and now they pray inside the house they tried to burn down. That's not a comeback. That's divine vengeance dressed in quiet elegance. There were days you didn't think you'd make it. Nights that bled into mornings where you questioned your own worth. You remember them like distant screams. The betrayal that bit deeper than a blade. The isolation that pressed its cold hands against your chest. And still, you breathed. Maybe slow, maybe jagged, but you breathed. And each breath was defiance. Each step was treason against the story they wrote for you. And when you finally stood on your own 2 feet again, you didn't just rise, you ascended. Do you know what kind of fire it takes to burn and still walk forward? That's not inspiration. That's war. Inner war. Soul war. The kind of transformation they can't sell in books or wrap in hashtags. That kind of growth isn't pretty. It's feral. It's blood in your mouth and dust in your lungs, but it's real. And real is what terrifies people who live behind filters. You didn't become strong in public. You did it in secret, behind closed doors, in empty rooms, in silence so loud it could crush most people. But you endured it, not just survived, endured. That's the difference. They'll talk now, trying to reframe history, trying to pretend they believed in you all along. Let them talk. Let them scramble to catch up with the story they never understood. They didn't see the rehearsals in the dark, the countless attempts, the crushed hopes turned into kindling. They didn't see you when you had nothing left but spite and will. But you saw you. You stayed when no one else did. You were your own last believer. That's what makes you unstoppable. Because once you've saved yourself, no one can ever own you again. You're not just the plot twist. They'll speak about you like folklore. The one who vanished and returned unrecognizable. The ghost who built a kingdom from the afterlife of their doubt. They'll tell your story in hushed tones, not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't say. You didn't explain your pain. You didn't justify your transformation. You showed them with every success, every step, every version of you that became sharper, smarter, colder, more focused. You showed them you weren't just trying to succeed, you were trying to erase the version of yourself that needed their permission. And now, they chase your shadow, trying to understand the fire they never saw coming. You were never meant to fit into their world. You were meant to shatter it, to build a new one from the fragments, and that's exactly what you did. They gave you pieces. You made a masterpiece, not for them, not for their applause, but for every version of you that cried and broke and bled behind closed doors. You built this for your own ghosts, and now those ghosts follow. You not as reminders of pain, but as proof of your resurrection. Your journey wasn't linear. It was jagged, wild, cruel, but it was yours, and that's what matters. Because now, when people hear your name, they don't just remember you. They remember how they underestimated you. They remember the silence before the detonation. They remember the moment everything changed, and they didn't see it coming. You became the glitch in their system, the error in their code, the anomaly that destroyed their illusion of control. You became the reminder that not all fires burn out. Some just wait for oxygen. So breathe deep. Breathe like the weapon you are. This is your empire now. Not because you asked for it, but because you took it. You weren't born with a crown. You forged one in fire. And the throne, it wasn't given. It was built from bones. Yours, theirs, the past's. You are the plot twist they'll always remember because you weren't supposed to win. You weren't supposed to survive. You weren't supposed to come back. But here you are, louder than the silence, brighter than the fire, stronger than the history they tried to write you out of. This is not the end of your story. This is just the chapter where they realize you were never a supporting character. You were the author, the storm, the reckoning. And no matter how much they wish it wasn't true, they'll always remember you. Not because you fit in, but because you broke the mold. Not because you followed the script, but because you burned it. You executed a plot twist, not with drama, not with flair, but with sheer will, with ruthless intent, with a silent promise to never be forgotten. And that is power. They whisper now. That's what happens when someone you doubted becomes a monument you have to walk around. They try to rewrite their memories, pretend they saw your greatness before it bloomed, but history doesn't forget, and neither do you. You remember who doubted you, who smiled at your pain, who fed your fears with their fake concern, but you also remember the silence you made peace with. The nights you clenched your teeth and promised yourself you wouldn't die like this. Not unknown, not unfinished, not unproven. That oath, that cold, quiet, private vow, that's the spine of your empire now. You see, some people rise with praise. You rose with nothing. You built without applause, without a safety net, without backup plans. You got up with cracked ribs and blood in your mouth and said, again, because you knew this world doesn't hand crowns to the worthy. It gives them to the loud, the cruel, the connected. So you became louder in your silence, crueler in your focus, connected only to the darkest parts of yourself that refused to give up. You didn't wait to be chosen, you became unignorable. And now here you are, not begging for a seat, not waiting in line. You're the architect of the damn building. They don't understand how you did it, how someone like you, quiet, broken, forgotten, became something that roars without sound. That's because they think power looks like gold. You know better. Power looks like patience, like scars, like a slow, methodical storm that doesn't ask for recognition. It just erases what stood before it. Let them call you ruthless, cold, obsessed. They don't understand what it costs to pull yourself out of the grave they dug for you. They think you changed, but you didn't change. You returned to who you were before the world told you to shrink. You reclaimed the version of yourself that never needed validation, that never waited to be understood, that only knew one thing: survive first, then conquer. You've walked through fire, not just once, but again and again, until the flame stopped burning you and started bowing to you. You turned pain into pressure and pressure into diamonds, not because you wanted to shine, but because you wanted to never be crushed again. You mastered your rage. You bent your grief into discipline. You sculpted your trauma into a throne. They see the crown now, but not the screams beneath it. Let them envy the result. You own the process. And now, you wear your darkness like royalty, because real kings and queens are made in exile, in the forgotten corners of the world, where hope dies and something else is born in its place. Will. And your will? It's forged in something they'll never understand. That's why they fear you. That's why they watch you. Because in you, they see what they never had the stomach to become. You didn't just face your demons. You trained them. You turned them into guards for your gates. This is your vengeance. Not through violence, not through hate, but through undeniable evolution. Through the weight of your presence. Through the cold truth that they needed you broken. And you denied them that victory. You denied them the satisfaction of watching you fade. Instead, you became a monument to the power of one person refusing to stay down. That's the story now. You are the warning. You are the proof. You are the echo that will outlive them all. Look at yourself now. No, really. Look. Not the mirror version, the one behind your eyes. The one who didn't flinch when the world struck first. The one who screamed in silence but never stopped moving. That person, that soul, that's the architect of the plot twist they'll never forget. Because you didn't just change your story, you changed theirs. They have to live with the knowledge that they were part of the act that made you rise. They were the background noise in your symphony, and now they can't mute the sound. You are not kind in the way they want kindness. You're not soft in the way they need to feel safe. You've grown sharp, precise, silent, like a dagger in the dark, and they mistake your peace for passivity. But you're not passive. You're patient. You've learned the art of letting time do your bidding. You don't rush revenge. You don't rush legacy. You've learned to let the world catch up because you already know where you're going. And that certainty, that's what scares them the most. They'll try to explain you. They'll say you got lucky, that you changed, that you sold out. Let them. Let them talk while you build. Let them speculate while you ascend. Their words are echoes. You're the thunder. Their doubt was never your weakness. It was your kindling. And you burned clean. No apologies, no hesitation. Just pure, deliberate ignition. This is your era. Not because someone gave it to you, but because you declared it. You planted your flag in soil they told you was infertile, and you grew anyway. Not just grew, thrived. You became something mythic, a force wrapped in flesh, a soul with claws, a legacy written not in ink but in scars. And now, they study you. They dissect your moves, trying to mimic your formula. But there is no formula. There is only you, and the dark path you lit by setting yourself on fire. And that's the final truth they'll never speak aloud. That they tried to kill the very thing they needed. That your downfall would have made them feel superior, but your success makes them feel irrelevant. Because you didn't just win, you outlived their expectations. You outlasted their cruelty. You rose so high that the air is too thin for them to follow. And now they suffocate on their own doubt while you breathe rarefied air, earned breath, earned blood, earned glory. So let the world watch, let the past rot, let your name become legend. Because you didn't just execute a plot twist, you became one. A shift in the narrative so severe, they'll study it for years. You turned every no into a weapon, every rejection into ammunition. You weren't reborn, you were revealed. And that version of you, the one standing here now, that version is bulletproof. That version is forever. So walk like the ending they never saw coming. Speak like the silence that drowned them. And build like someone who knows they've already won. You are the plot twist. You are the reckoning. You are the moment the world realized it never knew you at all. And now, we arrive at the end, but not your end. This is the end of their illusion, the end of the underestimation, the end of their comfort in your silence. This is the last page of their narrative and the prologue of yours. Because what you've done here, what you've become, isn't just about survival, it's about evolution. You didn't escape the fire. You embraced it. You learned to breathe in smoke, to walk through flames, to let them melt away everything that wasn't real. And when the blaze died down, only one thing remained. You. Not the version of you they could control. Not the one they could pity. But the version they can't unsee, can't undo, can't unmake. That's what a true plot twist is. It doesn't just shock. It redefines everything that came before. It forces them to look back at every moment they dismissed you, every time they laughed behind your back, every time they said, "You can't," and realize that they were speaking to a God in the making. You were the quiet before the storm. You were the shadow that studied the light. And now that you have revealed yourself, they can never unknow you. Your presence is permanent. Your name is etched into the walls of their memory like a scar they gave you that healed in the shape of a crown. Understand this. You didn't win by playing their game. You shattered the board. You burned the rules. You rose without their permission, without their help, and without losing the darkness that shaped you. Because that darkness is not your shame. It is your inheritance. It is your armor. You didn't need to be perfect. You needed to be undeniable. And you are. Unshakable, unforgiving, unstoppable. They'll try to find the formula now. They'll study your steps, imitate your style, mimic your strength. But what they'll never replicate is the crucible, the suffering, the transformation in the shadows when no one was watching. Because that's where the real power is born. Not in the spotlight, but in